Hi, my name is Victoria, and I will be talking to you about my responsibilities when it comes to telling stories. I will talk about stories I have read and written, the main ideas when writing a play, stereotypes, and what it means to tell a story. The first thing that comes to mind when I think about a storytelling event that moved me would have to be the Harry Potter series. Before reading the Harry Potter series, I hadn't seen very many movies or read very many books that had females as the leading character, especially younger females like Hermione, who stood up for their rights and weren't just love interests or there as comedic relief. I feel like the way that Emma Watson played the role of Hermione also helped me connect better with the character because her expressions allowed me to understand how she was feeling, especially in scenes like when she was leaving her house and had to obliviate her parents into thinking that they never had a child at all. This scene makes me think about what I would do if I had to make my own parents forget about me, and how strong and brave Hermione was to erase herself from her parents' lives. When I first watched the movies, I was mesmerized by the idea of magic, and I began imagining that I was a witch and that I had magical powers. I think that if Hermione hadn't been one of the main characters, I wouldn't have felt so connected to the story, and I don't think I would have imagined having my own magic. I know that seeing the Harry Potter series helped me with becoming more confident with myself, as the characters in this series are between the ages 11 and 18, and I felt I could easily relate to the problems they encountered. At the same time, the movies were a good break from reality, as I knew that magic and Lord Voldemort weren't real, and that the book was based in a fantasy world. If I had the opportunity to tell a story that would be heard all through Canada, I would use my Theatre of the Oppressed play idea. The story is about a young boy who faces racism all his life, and also gets kicked out of his house because he comes out as being gay. The story is told from the boy's perspective, and will follow him through his life as he discovers the truth that life isn't fair. I think that this story is important for people all across Canada and all around the world to hear because in today's society, people are becoming more open with their sexualities, and I think that not everyone is understanding this. I want my story to be a way for people to realize that someone else's sexuality will not harm you, and that while it might be scary to talk about your sexuality, and while some people might turn away from you when you need them the most, there are still people in the world who will be there for you no matter what. I also want my story to be a way for people to see themselves represented in a book or play. I know that I am not black, and that I do have privilege, and I want to use my privilege to help people with less privilege than me. I would turn my dialogue from the My Favorite Place assignment into a novel. Right now I have the first paragraph, which is just introducing characters and saying that they are playing games at someone's house for a sleepover. If I were to actually turn it into a novel, I would add much more detail on how each of the characters looks, and more detail on how the room looks. Since the story is from the main character's point of view, I would give more detail on how she thinks of the other characters, and show more of the relationship between her and her parents. I would also create more depth for each of the characters. As the story continues, I would have them finish playing games, and have them all talk and fall asleep. I would show the characters in a school setting, and follow the main character through her life at school. The inciting incident of the story would be her meeting a new girl at school, and realizing that she likes her, and she starts questioning her sexuality. The rising action would include her talking to the girl, becoming friends with her, telling her other friends about liking her, and eventually getting enough courage to talk to the girl about liking her. The climax is when the main character talks to her crush, and her crush tells her how she feels. The four main ideas to follow when reading a play are to not judge characters, use your mind's eye, chunk the play, and finally name the chunks. Firstly, don't judge the characters. The playwright wants you to judge their work and is relying on it. You need to keep your mind open to new character development. Secondly, use your imagination or mind's eye to picture the characters. When reading a play, you want to be open to everything and try to see the characters from the playwright's perspective. Thirdly, you should break up the play into chunks based on the topic to make it easier to understand. Finally, you should name the chunks based on the topic they are about. In middle school, I was part of an enhanced learning class, and we never really did worksheets or had specific times for certain subjects. The other students were jealous that we had projects and assignments instead of worksheets, and they assumed that everyone in the class was super smart. Sometimes they would say we were nerds or that we were the teacher's pet just because we actually asked questions to the teacher for clarification or spoke to the teacher in the hall outside of class. Sometimes other teachers would come to us and ask us to fix their technology issues or ask us to solve a challenging problem their class couldn't solve. They would be shocked if we didn't know the answer and expected a lot more from us than they did from other students. We would also be excluded from school-wide activities sometimes because my class was a split class that had grades 6, 7, and 8 students, and they would forget that we had people graduating. When you say that we are nothing but stories, I think you mean that all of us have a responsibility to tell our story and to share stories. In theater and in the acting world, we as actors take the responsibility of telling other people's stories, and as the director or playwright, you create the story that is being told. Stories have a big impact on the drama world, and on everyone who reads or hears a story being told. Thank you for listening to my storytelling experiences and my opinion on what responsibility of telling stories means to me.